Good afternoon. All right. I've said good afternoon a few times and I got no response. Good afternoon. Much better. We're together. It's a hot afternoon, and so we're going to have to keep ourselves going. All right. My name is Wambui Kenya. I'll be co-hosting parts of today with James Smart, who will be on his way soon, caught up in a bit of traffic. And welcome to all our honorable guests, colleagues, and friends, all protocols observed. Welcome to the launch, much anticipated, very excited. Welcome to the launch of the Qubit Hub. Fantastic. We'll be hearing a lot about Qubit, but in case you are wondering why you are here, it is a Pan-African hybrid platform designed to be a central point for AI research, talent development, policy engagement, and startup growth. Has big ambitions. It aims to change Africa from a passive consumer of AI solutions to the active creator in the global AI landscape. So let's not be the passive people who are scrolling. What are we actually building, and how are we leveraging this fantastic technology? Today we are going to hear from the founders. We're also going to hear from voices from the ecosystem, because this is an ecosystem of builders, and it is not done by one organization. This includes a strategic convening of academia, industry, governments, investors, and civil society. We want to collectively address the continent's unique opportunities to be able to embrace AI, whatever the challenges may be, but most importantly, to build sovereign AI capacity on the continent. If you are posting on social media, please tag hashtag Qubit Hub or hashtag Qubit in your social media mentions. Thank you. Now we're ready to get started. We're going to start with the founding members of Qubit Hub. As I describe who you are, please come up to the stage. Modhoni, the COO of Amini AI. Modhoni is an East African tech operations leader with a background in securities investment, where she has a proven track record of building transformative technology solutions for underserved communities. A passionate advocate for the power of data, Modhoni is dedicated to harnessing this potential to solve some of Africa's most pressing challenges, including climate change, food security, and systemic development. She believes that data-driven innovation can hyperscale the economic, social, technological, and sustainable transformation of the global South. Welcome, Modhoni. Riaz, CEO, Angani. Riaz is the CEO at Angana Limited, a cloud services provider in Africa, working to bring back a lot of Africa's content back to the continent. He was previously the founding CTO of two very successful telecom ventures, Wananchi Group, the first triple play company in Africa, and Kenya Data Networks, now Liquid Telecom. Riaz is the initial founder of Skunkworks and was part of the founding iHub advisory board in 2010. He's also one of the pioneers in cloud computing in Kenya. Welcome, Riaz. Next is Dr. Shiko. Dr. Shiko is the CEO of Kala, a digital innovation company driving Africa's transformation. With over a decade of experience in emerging markets, she has led innovation across agriculture, education, health, payments, retail, and co-authored the Digital Government Blueprint while at the Africa Development Bank. Having also worked at Google and Microsoft, she bridges business, government, and technology. She advises governments on digital policy, serves on several boards, and holds a PhD and a Master of Science in Computer Science from the University of Cape Town. Welcome, Dr. Shiko. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Yes, it's an awkward fourth chair. Or fifth chair. All right, let's start with why are we here? Why Qubit and why now? Let's start with you, Shiko.
I thought you were going to start with them, so I can manage my emotions. Seeing the room full is one of those things. I was telling the team we've been trying to do the hub for 3 years. And we've been told many times it can't be done because Africa is not ready to build its own AI. We don't have enough talent. We don't have enough money to buy compute. We don't have data sets. So seeing all of you here is a believability aspect that it can be done. So thank you so much for coming. Let me start with that. So I'm going to give you a story of why Qubit, and I'm going to put somebody on the spot. I had warned them that I'm going to do it. Kala was founded in December of 2019, and in March of 2020, what happened? COVID. We were a small team of about 8 people. Many of us were data scientists, and we didn't know. I had turned down jobs, used my savings to set up Kala's, paid salaries for the first 3 months as we were waiting for the company to start. And I remember somebody in the team said, oh, this is COVID, but we have done this before. What had we done? In our previous employer, we had built a model to track down cholera across the continent, across the country. So we said, what can we do with COVID? So we built a very simple model to predict what would happen if COVID was to hit the whole country. And I remember I called Joe Micherum. I said, Joe, we have done this thing. We don't know if it's going to be useful, but we have done it. And Joe, being Joe, told us, come at 5 in the morning at a certain, at a certain hotel and show. And we showed him. And he said, okay, how much time do you need to refine this? Because he's a techie, he understands, yeah? And we said, okay, give us like a week. Then, of course, it was on a Friday, right, when COVID was announced, so it was a Saturday morning. So, of course, on Monday, Joe calls and says, how far are you? I said, I thought we said 10 days. Because it was an urgent case. So we were sitting at our co-working. He comes and sits with us for a couple of hours to refine our questions. And Joe gave us a kick to be able to believe we can change the world. And I'm not going to cry. And that moment for me has never been gone away. Because what we want Qubit to do is to provide that moment for many people in Africa who don't have the enabling environment. Somebody who believes in your ideas, somebody who has talent, who has capacity to do it. So when I met Kate in San Francisco, Kate is the CEO of Armenia, and I said, Kate, we need to get GPUs for Africa. And she was like, let's do this. And the first person I called out after that was Riaz, and said, Riaz, we are getting GPUs for Africa. We didn't know at that time how we were going to do it, but we just said we are going to do it. And Riaz said, I'm willing to chip in some space, I'm willing to do this, we are going to just do it. And we started doing it. And just having people who believe in something together, you know, there's the believability in even the Bible says when there's unity, God commands a blessing. And that's what has happened. The moment we said we are coming together to do, somebody offered to buy some GPUs. Amini provided some GPUs. We have the space. And for me, this space is for creating that enabling environment for African AI researchers and developers and startups to start a space to believe. And that's why I called Joe and said, you have to come. And I'm happy that he came, because this is a believability and it's an extension of that moment he gave to all of us.
That's fantastic. Riaz, maybe you could also speak a little bit to the vision. What are you hoping for?
Yeah, I think, we have a similar story. When last year, I think, was it April or July, we had the FinTech forum, held a breakfast, and Ngani was there, and I stood there. And my team had been telling me, like this AI thing is happening, and we're going to be there. We're going to run GPUs, and I had no idea then how it would happen and what would happen. But I stood up and said that, Ngani is going to help, and we're going to make it happen. And again, similarly, I got a call from Shiko, and she said, this is what we want to do. So it was a no-brainer. We had to get behind it and give it whatever resources we have. At the same time, our team had been working on, hosting when DeepSeek came out and Llama before that, and just to try and optimize whatever we had, because that's what we do, right? We build from the ground up. We don't have the billions, but we take what we have and we optimize and we build it. And so the team had been playing with stuff, and so it's just been incredible to see everything come together. And for me, again, it's about it's about what comes next. It's about the next generation. It's very important that just like we've had the opportunities, we've had the environments, we create the environments for the next generation. A lot of what you see today has been put together by the teams at Kala, at Angani, at Amini. It's actually the teams. We get to sit here today, but kudos to the teams that have worked and actually made it all happen. And that's the generation that now is going to carry this forward. And that's the energy I see. And for us, it's just to give them the resources and invest in that, invest our resources in that. And that's what drives us. And the best thing is to be able to do it with friends who've come from far in the industry. We have certain capabilities. That's just pull together resources and give the community a space where now we can actually take AI and future technologies and move forward with them.
So everything they've said is exactly why we're here. And I think, like Shiko said, when Amini and Kala connected on this, it was not even 20 minutes before we were like, we're doing this together. And something she said I want to echo is actually belief. So Amini, I think most of you will know, it means belief, faith. And the story of how Amini started actually, like every great startup, a couple of people in a coffee shop. And when we were saying we're going to build an AI company from Kenya with Kenyan talent, everybody was, and this is before ChatGPT became what it is today and made everybody aware of what AI is. There was a lot of questions around what, why, are you okay? And maybe the background of a lot of our team is, so Kate, my founder, is from NVIDIA, has a long storied history in deep tech, but a lot of the team as well, ARM, Apple, Huawei, NASA, all of that. But why did we come together to do what we're doing in Amini? It's because we really believed in one thing and one thing only. It was the talent here is very capable of delivering at a global level, but more importantly, has very, very real problems that they want to solve, and anything they do will make 10 times the difference that they would have made anywhere else in the world. And so Amini is really about that core, but one of the things that we really wanted to prove when we were starting out is we can be a beacon for what is possible, what talent here can do while staying here on the continent. But one of the things we realized is actually it's about making it known. The awareness is just not there. The opportunity, I think that's what you've also talked about, the enabling environment. So sometimes why we were making that decision to be, the crazy ones to do it first, is just to show other people that it is possible. You might fail, it will be hard, but it's possible. And so Qubit for us is really about shining that beacon and just making anyone aware. You might not know how AI is built. You might just be walking past. But if you have a chance to see, actually, it's just regular people like me and you coming in here and doing this, I think that then sparks a change that even I don't think we sitting here are aware of how big this can become. And it's literally just the opportunity. So that's the only reason we're here, is to give as many people as possible the opportunity to get into this, build what they need to build. So that's really at the core of what we're trying to achieve here with Qubit.
Fantastic. And what I'm told these days is you can show your appreciation just like that, or clap. But thank you. That's definitely very inspiring. So now let's set the stage for those who are here today to better understand what is this overarching context in which you are launching Qubit Hub. Riaz, according to some global North AI companies, for humanity to build better AI, we need compute. More data, more energy, more LLMs. and more electricity to fuel the technology. Are you of the same opinion? And to what extent is Africa a part of this race?
I think now we are, right? We have to solve our problems in our way. Look at the data center market, because that's historically a lot of infrastructure, a lot of investment. So there's certain things that match with whatever you get in the West and you have to do in the West. And there's certain things that you have to do at the scale we have here. I mean, Africa is not interesting for a lot of companies out there because it's like 2% of their budget, their GDP, whatever it is. So, but you see, for us, it's 100%. It's how do we take that to grow to 500%? It's very easy. We're like a startup, and so we do things the startup way. So for whatever we need to do, I think the resources out there. Now there's a lot of so in terms of what we need to train and what we need to start getting our hands dirty with and to serve businesses with and to move our economies forward. Obviously, we don't need the huge amount of resources, and that's what we're going to use. But Africa is also blessed with a lot of clean energy, green energy, and I know it's attractive right now. So you will see investments. They will see people coming, making investments into the large data centers, the large power plants, etc., that AI needs for overall training. But for us, we grow organic, right? We're not going looking to raise funds and then try and grow from there. We're sustainable. That's so that's what we're doing. We take the first steps and we grow from there. The capacity already that is available exists. What we need is we need certain level of concessions, right? So we need certain level of reduced power costs, being able to bring in hardware, things like that. Those would help to go forward a long way.
Fantastic. And I know we'll be hearing from policymakers who perhaps will also speak to how will those concessions become enabled. So thank you for that. But continuing with this theme around the wars and the race, Shiko, what is AGI and how are you envisioning where Africa plays into AGI and specifically the Qubit Hub?
So there's AGI, which was like 2024, and now there's super intelligence, which is now 2025. And it's basically a version of artificial intelligence. So AGI is artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence, ASI. It's all a version of AI, that mimics as much human activities as possible. Every time I sit in one of these conversations, I will say, whose reality is being represented with AI, A certain CEO once said that AI is the truest representation of human capacity. And my question was, human intent. And I said, whose intent? Because you've not spoken about Africa. Africa has more than 2,300 languages. How many of those are digitized, leave alone AI ready? Less than 50, right? And those ones that are AI ready, who has, of the 4 or 5 frontier models, how many of them have a tokenizer for Maasai or for other things? How many of them? None of them have. So we need to be able to solve for this. For it to be truly AGI, it needs to be representative of Africa, And that's why we are here. And we are really grateful for, so 2 months ago there was a huge uproar around AI is going to be the next doctor. Doctors are not going to be there in the next 10 years. So we said, okay, we agree, but let's test it from an African perspective. And Fred, who leads our health and AI work, we did what we call a benchmark. And the benchmark tool was to test the models on how well are they performing with health from an African perspective. What did we do? We got 100 African doctors to tell us how they actually apply health in their normal day. We recorded that, made them into a model and into a benchmark, and tested the models against that. And many of them failed. And they failed in some of the biggest diseases that we have, which is the longest pandemic in the world. Do we all know it?
Yes.
HIV. 40 years of HIV, and most of the models were only showing 6, at most 7 questions for HIV. Which is the most persistent, which is the biggest killer disease? Huh? Malaria. Malaria was highly underrepresented as well. What is there's a partner disease to malaria. Dengue fever. And another one, there are 3 of them. They come together. No, sickle cell. All of them highly underrepresented in all of these models. And if we had not pointed out to these, they will have gone on being underrepresented. Why? Because all the models have been created against the American medical college entrance exams. Not Kenya, not Rwanda, American data sets. Which means that if we didn't have a medical person in our team testing these things, it will not have happened. If we didn't have 100 doctors that we had access to help us test this, it would not have happened. So we have to, this AGI has to be built an African AGI, so I'm just going to add an extra A. It has to have an African version of it for it to be truly AGI. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we've heard from an infrastructure perspective, perhaps we don't need the big guns. It's just a matter of building with what we've got. But certainly trying to seek some concessions. We're hearing about the opportunities to be able to have representative data sets. Modoni, I have a question for you. Who's building this? And is there a risk to talent being taken away from the continent? Especially, there's been a lot of hype around how the big techs are really fighting for talent amongst themselves. How do you and how does Qubit view this risk for talent if it's there, and how will Qubit try to curb it?
We've all heard about the $100 million pay packages, and it must be nice. Can't begrudge them that. And you know what? I think there's a couple of parts to this question. First of all, when you're thinking about an African talent, they do this, and if they have the skills and the capability of building at that level, I think they do deserve to have equal economic opportunity, right? So I think the challenge for me isn't necessarily about the talent. It's about how do we create that economic opportunity here so that talent doesn't feel the need to leave. Because actually most people, you'll find, don't want to leave home. I'm one of them. I was desperate to come back. Everybody wants to build here. Everyone wants to build for their neighbors, for their families, for their communities. So what is currently pushing them away from that deep desire? Again, it's the opportunity. How many I think we have 1% of the world's GPUs. So you're doing deep research. How are you actually, getting anywhere with it? Then on the other side of that, it's also the quality of work. So, for example, if you're just taking something that's been pre-built and maybe inputting it into a chatbot to do what XYZ for your large enterprise corporate company that you're working for, it's not as fulfilling as someone who feels like they're working on a fundamental problem. So how do we make sure that you have the opportunities here to do the work and still have the global impact that all of these developers are looking for? So I think one of the things I think that you have mentioned is the opportunity you had where they turned to Kala to do the work that was needed for the Kenyan context. So if you have a large enterprise or a government agency or something with a specific technical challenge, their first instinct a lot of the time is to look to the people who are offering $100 million pay packages. But there's people here doing that work. Kala's here, Amini's here, and I'm sure there's a few more, Bambo's here. There's a lot of people in the audience doing a lot of very meaningful work. But a lot of the time, you just don't have the chance to prove it. And we have to ask ourselves, why is that? Because if you're not paying local companies to do important work, how are you going to complain that there's a brain drain, your talent is leaving the country? Who's supposed to pay them here locally, right? But I think if we're smart, we can actually use this opportunity to, rearrange or redistribute economic power and have it actually sat here, because everyone's still figuring this out. AI feels like a done deal, but I don't think we're even 10% or even 5% of the way there, and it changes every 3 months, right? So how can we make sure that we're setting up ourselves to not be importers and consumers of technology, but actually to become exporters? And that's exactly what Qubit is here for. And that's a mission that we've been on as a Mini for a long time. We've really believed from the very first day, like I said, we believed in our talent, but we knew we were not going to do it alone. We wanted to have an ecosystem of partners that we work with to make sure that we're reaching as many and as widely as possible. So for example, we have a long-standing partnership with a platform called Zindi, the biggest platform for machine learning / data science engineers on the continent. And it's a great story, you can go read it on their website, of a citizen science challenge that we did with them. And this was, you didn't have to be a data scientist, you could be a regular person, all you needed was a phone, start participating in data collection, data cleaning, so understand the process of how you build these models. And actually from that challenge, there's a few people who today went from completely not understanding anything about data science, today are working as data scientists. And so that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Another thing we have is an API playground where we're making it accessible for people to use pre-built models or use their own models. We have a compute orchestrator, so you can actually come, and that's what's going to be powering the hub here. Gives access to compute. So you're doing research. You might not have GPU access on your own, but you can come on their request, and it will actually allocate you compute for whatever project you're doing. Also data sets. So we're kind of trying to bring together the very core fundamental building blocks of AI, not so that we can build the tools and whatever else, so that everybody else can build it. Because I cannot tell you what somebody in Namibia needs, what AI solution they need. But the person sat in Namibia has that idea, they just need the resources and the opportunity to actually get on with it. And so that's why we're here, I think that's why we're all here. It's just like, let everybody else get on with it, but we have to acknowledge that we have some fundamental building blocks that we need to put in place. So I think it's a challenge, not maybe necessarily to us up here, but to everybody in here. If you have an opportunity to incorporate AI or digitization or whatever in your own organizations, are you turning to the local ecosystem and seeing what is available here first? Why is our instinct always to go elsewhere? So in terms of talent, I do think it's a little bit secondary, but I also hope that the lab is that opportunity that they need. But the lab is a little bit of a great equalizer, because what it does is, like we did with the Zindi challenge, bring in people who maybe don't necessarily have the education, the background, because that's another great thing about what we do. I can't tell you what degrees half my engineers have. I couldn't tell you. But I know they're brilliant, I know they deliver, I know they're passionate, and that's all you really need in this day and age where things are going so quickly. We need more talent than we have access to a lot of the time. But at the same time, I know everybody is brilliant. And so even, for example, I don't know if he's here today, a lot of our team comes from local universities, the Kut and Nyeri, I think everyone's familiar with them. So even as companies, just understanding that we also can look locally and internally and find that talent here, I think that's the starting point. But long story short, nobody wants to leave home. They're usually pushed out of home. So how do we make sure we are allowing them to stay here?
Fantastic. And now, Shuk, if I can ask, so certainly AI is becoming increasingly multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary. It's academia, researchers are AI, everybody is AI in terms of beyond just productivity and how they may use it in their personal capacities. But oftentimes in this tech journey, we've spoken about misaligned incentives. What are those misaligned incentives when you talk about academia, government, and what are some of those partnerships that can be leveraged or can be grown and can come out of Qubit?
Awesome, thank you. I'm happy that both Melissa and Prof. Nderu, I've just made him a professor. He's Dr. Nderu from JKUAT is here. And Jackie actually is here because they're all different types of researchers. And so the biggest challenge we have in Africa, and why I personally quit academia, is there's no incentive to do great research at the academic level. Yeah. And so, which means that downstream, we thin out on great innovations. And Tony Omanso was supposed to be here, but he's on a commercialization summit this week. And then we thin out on what is going to be commercialized. So what we want to do with Qubit, because it's university agnostic what is it called, big tech agnostic, government agnostic, is to create a space where researchers, whether you're a researcher from a university or from a big tech or small tech research lab or from government, you can be able to come and do your research and see it from an industrial lens. You have to look at AI is an IP business. It's not just a paper business. It's what IP are we producing? Oh, and Professor Musi there from Daystar, I'm seeing all the professors now. Yeah, is come do your independent research, show value, create IP, commercialize your IP. And that's what happens when you bring brilliant people together. I always tell people the best thing that happened to me when I was in academia, when I was a university student is more appropriate, is I got an internship with Microsoft. And Microsoft Research, I always say, we got exposed to things that were coming 5 years later. Yeah. So I remember when we were talking about the tablet, and it was like a tablet. This was 2008. Yeah. And you're talking about this thing that is you're going to be using on your phone, on your but it helps you dream. And we are hoping that we can be able to infuse some of that and work with universities to allow, you're not just doing this to write a paper, but you're doing this to be able to dream and to be able to build capacity to be able to build that IP, because IP is the most important thing in this game. Sorry, welcome PS. We are giving PS a few minutes to settle in. Karibu sana, sir. So our goal with this is to create like a highly versatile research environment for people to be able to build and to dream big. Yeah. So when I was calling Jackie, I was hoping Jackie can come, and Jackie will definitely be coming to the lab once a month to give a talk or to train some of the researchers. Yeah. We have Musi has been here. We're giving him a desk from Daystar. Yeah. Dr. Nderu, Dr. Nderu is always like, if you see enough pictures of color, you'll see Dr. Nderu everywhere, right? And so for us, it is being able to say, you in academia, bring in your students, bring in your research problems, let us work with them together. And there's going to be an announcement today, I don't want to preempt it, of a fellowship that we are going to be announcing around that. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. I think as we begin to close this panel, Riaz, okay, we can no longer say look out 5 years and predict. Everything is happening in bursts of 3 months. Is happening in the Qubit Hub. What are you hopeful for?
Connections. Already just today, a few colleagues who I know each of them are doing their own thing. Sam is building in his bedroom. Abram's doing some stuff. And they're all doing stuff related to AI, but they've not met. So it's these connections. We hope more people will come together. We hope that more of these connections come about. And in that, more ideas like Qubit will be born, because it takes a phone call, it takes a connection. So I think that, the space has been created, the resources have been created. Let's see how best to make use of them. AI has a home in Kenya. That's what we said now. And that's at Qubit. So it's a space, it's available for events, it's available for training, it's available for, whatever it is. Yeah.
It's available for your data, you've not told them.
It's available for your data. Shiko comes to me, we have data sets. We have these massive data sets. I'm like, how much? Like, it's okay, bring the data sets. It's fine. We have the storage. So we have lots of storage for the data sets. We have the compute. So let's make good use of all of that, and just let's form these connections, within the space.
Fantastic. Modoni, any parting words around your outlook for the next couple of quarters?
Like I said, like I think we've just said, it's hard to tell what's going to happen next week. However, what I do hope comes to be is, like I said earlier, if we can become exporters versus just consumers, I think I will be happy. And whatever form that takes, it might not necessarily be that we built, the biggest model running on, $1 billion a day compute. And it might just be something that's a very practical solution that actually you're exporting from Kenya to Nepal because they have a very similar context. So that's actually how Amini had whatever. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about building here specifically is the problem. We're really focused on very fundamental problems. And once you find that you're focusing on something that's a very, very, very pure fundamental problem, you will find it has an application almost anywhere in the world. So it's fine, people can be building, AI that makes you like the prettiest or whatever. But once you have something that's solving, for farmers, for energy, for healthcare, you will find that is something that is needed desperately multiple places. And I hope that the story for us is that we have become actually the leaders in exporting some of those really, really great solutions. That's all. That's all I really hope.
Fantastic. I love the vision. And Shiko, maybe with a bit of a lens around, it's a Pan-African platform. So this is not a Kenya launch. This is a Pan-African launch. What are you envisioning in terms of anyone who's watching in, let's say, Nigeria or Egypt? What can they anticipate in terms of Qubit?
So it's Pan-African. You're going to see both. At least we tried having like a geographical representation. So you're going to have both Egypt and Lesotho represented, and others actually joining on because they didn't get permission to actually speak. But we wanted to be able to have Africans working with each other. I always tell people, don't go and pitch. I know John is here. Don't pitch Kenya. Pitch Africa. Because America pitches itself as a 350 million population. China, 1.2 billion. Africa, Kenya, 50 million. Rwanda, 14 million. We pitch our small markets, and nobody sees the versatility of the continent as one single market. The good thing, one of the partners of the lab is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where they're setting up an AI sandbox. So if you have a model, if you have a data set, if you have a tool that you want to be used Pan-African, you use the trade AI sandbox to be able to have it available to any developer, any government across the continent. And that's why we are doing this, is to ensure that Africans are succeeding in Africa and abroad. That is the goal about it. And you can work with your counterpart in Algeria. And that's why you got North Africa to be part of our launch. And in Southern Africa or in Nigeria, people are able to do this. So there's going to be an online registration and vetting process. I'm saying vetting because that will be there for you to be part of the lab, to access the GPUs, our GPUs, and NVIDIA is going to be announcing later on, we're going to have a bit of like compute credits for a few people, but we want to be able to have anything sovereign in health, in agriculture that you cannot do outside the continent. You can access the GPUs locally and use them. So thank you.
Exciting. Can we get a round of applause? And I think, thank you from the ecosystem. You took what was simply an idea, and the best way to get started is to get started. And this launch, I think, is really representative of that. So thank you, Shiku. Thank you, Riaz. Thank you, Mudhoni. Thank you. All right, we're going to be agile this afternoon. All right, so next we're going to move towards some keynote addresses. And this is really to understand from the perspective of governance, from the perspective of policymakers. How are they thinking about this opportunity in AI? How are they thinking about how it is we are able to create in a very sovereign way for our continent? There'll be 4 keynote addresses. And we will start with Honorable Mr. Stephen Motari Isaboke, Principal Secretary, State Department for Broadcasting and Telecommunications, Kenya. Honorable Isaboke is the Principal Secretary for Broadcasting and Telecommunications, as I've said. He's overseeing policy development in telecommunications, broadcasting, e-commerce, postal services, local content, and government communications. He's a seasoned executive with over 25 years of leadership across technology, media, oil and gas, and renewable energy in Kenya and the UAE. He previously served as the Group Executive Director, Regulatory and Government Affairs Africa region at MultiChoice Africa Holdings in Dubai, and held senior roles at MultiChoice Group, Kenya, Shell, Sara Lee, and Unilever. Honorable Isaboke is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the UK, a member of the Institute of Directors in Kenya, and holds an MBA in Strategic Management from the University of Nairobi. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I should have been prepared for what I was actually coming into, seeing really all the friends, Waziri Musheru, Ambassador Kabira, from my old, obviously life, and really an exciting group of my friend here from the tech and everything. A very exciting group of people. So as you've heard, my name is Stephen Isaboke. I newly joined government. I was one of you really in private sector for a long time. Waziri, the CS Musheru, just immediate former CS, will tell you about that. And just joined in government in this space of telecoms and broadcasting. And obviously, because telecoms give you the platform where everything else plays, that's how we come into this space. Because data without connectivity is nothing. So it will be dead. And that's how we interplay. And policy cuts across. So really for me, an honor to join you this afternoon, all protocols observed, as I've recognized my good friends here, and also I see online or understand my predecessor, actually, I was newly also elected into the ATU chairmanship of Africa Telecoms Union. I see Honorable Kanono was actually meant to be here or online. I see also Professor Vitange Ndemo, Ambassador, I understand he joined online earlier, is in Europe. And Amir Farouk from the Ministry of Communications and Technology from Egypt. And then obviously Ambassador Kabira, that is a colleague at the ministry. So really, I am honored to join you this afternoon. And I'm so glad that I actually just got a snippet of what the panelists were actually talking about this afternoon. So obviously to join the Qubit Hub Research Center and by Kala, as I understand the operators, in partnership with Amini AI and Angani. This really these are the co-founders of this initiative. And today's launch of the Qubit Hub could not be more timely, because in fact, it aligns perfectly with our country's recent 2025-2030 National AI Strategy, and I think it's actually posted online, that seeks to position Kenya as a regional leader in AI research, development, and commercialization. And like my good friend here, Chao Musheru, and the predecessor used to say, data is the new currency. Data is actually the new oil. And now, obviously, AI is riding on data. And I think the panelists will talk about data and give us data and all that. So that time that we used to talk about the future is now. And obviously, all of it relying on data to actually run. The government of Kenya is actually steadfast in our commitment to build a robust digital ecosystem. And as envisioned in the digital superhighway pillar, which is actually one of the 5 pillars, and I'm not talking politics, I'm talking development communication. My brother will record. I'm talking development communication. So of the 5 pillars talking development, one of the pillars is actually the digital superhighway and creative economy. And that actually addresses the digital transformation. And the digital superhighway is actually meant to be a backbone of connectivity that runs 100,000 kilometers of cable across the country. And I'm glad the people who preceded us, like Cho here and the rest, did very good groundwork. And in fact, that work was going on. All we're doing is actually fulfilling a dream that was actually set. Underpinning that 100,000 kilometer cable will actually be digital hubs. These are really centers in the villages called wards, where people may not have sort of connectivity in their homes, can actually converge and access digital services, basically the internet and computing power in the villages. And also that underpins another 25,000 public Wi-Fi hotspots. So sometimes we in Nairobi or the up and privileged assume everyone has got, like a smartphone, all wired up, connected devices, and they're actually on. There's so many people who will have to rely on some internet capacity, some internet touch point to actually access the internet. And that's what the government is actually accelerating to make sure that we actually bridge the digital divide between those who have access and like us, who are basically in, and those who might have the knowledge but do not have the access. And these efforts will ensure that every Kenyan has access to high-speed connectivity and digital services. Most importantly, the infrastructure spur investments like Qubit, which we are actually launching today, that will actually power our country's innovators to engage in cutting-edge AI research, learning, and development. So it's basically just giving access, which then enables all the other stuff, innovation to happen for a future where no Kenyan will actually be left behind. And I'm so glad, one of the young ladies that spoke here spoke about, let's speak Africa, not Kenya. Let's speak Africa, not Kenya. Because combined, we've got nearly 1 billion or 800, many of them young. Africa has got one of the best youth profiles across the world. Luckily also educated now, as you can recognize from the Kenyan Gen Zs, very educated, very savvy. And what else can we do? We actually have to digitally include them. We just make sure that they're actually in the digital era, in the digital economy, and they can actually participate either as innovators, participating in every segment of that economy. And it's, for me, very commendable that Qubit Hub is focused on nurturing local talent through certified training, mentorship, advanced research, and by building a strong pipeline of AI engineers, data scientists, and digital leaders, Qubit Hub will actually create, nurture, and empower the next generation of African innovators. I applaud this create, nurture, and empower the next generation of African innovators. I applaud this commitment and encourage that Qubit Hub, alongside all our other partners, to continue investing in Kenya's emerging ICT sector, and indeed, I dare say, and as government are particularly keen on fostering an environment that supports research, innovation, and that upholds data privacy, security, and safety as fundamental principles. And data privacy is very important because, in fact, as I said, data is a new currency. So there are all these covenants around data privacy and governance. If your data is actually in my hands or in the hands of a processor, how do they actually use it for the good, not misuse it? And obviously in a legal sense. And most importantly, we also recognize that the success of Kenya's digital transformation agenda will actually largely depend on collaborations across all sectors, including academia, industry, civil society, government, and indeed all of these sort of innovation initiatives as the one that we are actually witnessing today. And by fostering an ecosystem where ideas flourish, innovations thrive, we are actually positioning Kenya and indeed Africa as a global player and leader in the AI landscape. One of the things that obviously we should be conscious about is that Africa has actually always been lagging behind in terms of industrial age and all that. And since this whole digital era is coming in with our own sort of age and awareness, we cannot afford to leave Africa actually again behind in the digital divide. We just make sure that Africa is playing head to head with the rest of the world. And I think the example you're doing today is ensuring that we actually play in that space, not just talk, but actually show it and actually play in that space. And really a round of applause for this initiative. Yeah. So in my closing remarks, let me also speak directly to every young researcher, entrepreneur, policymaker in this room and beyond. You have a task of determining Africa's AI narrative, and by innovating solutions that tackle our continent's challenges, reflect Africa's shared aspirations, and enhance our resilience. So take opportunity to actually create platforms such as Qubit Hub to innovate, to collaborate, and to lead. The government of the Republic of Kenya is firmly behind you, and I dare say welcomes all these innovations and ideas, and we are committed to creating a digitally empowered nation where every citizen has the tools to succeed. With these few remarks, I once again want to congratulate Qubit Hub for actually this initiative, and really wish to actually also encourage that we get more investors coming into our economy in Kenya and across Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Sabuke, friends. He is passionate about resilient digital ecosystems, inclusive innovation, and advancing Africa's digital transformation. Welcome,